Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're doing something a little different. We're bridging an absolutely incredible gap to see how ancient philosophy can actually act as a strategy guide for our modern minds. If you've ever felt completely overwhelmed by anxiety, or just paralyzed by the fear of the future, or even exhausted from overthinking your daily to-do list, well, you are exactly in the right place. We're going to explore a truly mind-bending crossover between ancient spiritual wisdom and the absolute cutting edge of modern science. Okay, let's dive right into this massive knowledge gap. What do modern quantum physicists, guys like J. Robert Oppenheimer, have to do with this ancient Hindu text, the Bhagavad Gita? It sounds like an impossible connection, right? But the crazy reality is that the founding fathers of quantum mechanics were literally obsessed with this text. And as we'll see, they realized these ancient thinkers were describing the exact same underlying reality of the universe that modern physicists were suddenly observing in their labs. We've got a lot of ground to cover today, so here's the blueprint for our explainer. 1. Ancient strategy meets modern science. 2. The Veda Leaf Strategy Guide. 3. Chapter 10, The Quantum Universe. 4. Defeating fear with thermodynamics. And 5. Becoming a mental thermos. Section 1, Ancient strategy meets modern science. Let's get right into it. So our starting point is a pretty profound contrast. Just picture it, the absolute chaos of the ancient Mahabharata battlefield. Dust everywhere, chariots, warriors clashing. And then contrast that with the sterile, strict mathematical environment of a modern theoretical physics lab. On the surface, they share absolutely nothing. But when you actually look at the fundamental laws of energy, action, and interconnectedness that they both describe, the ancient texts and the modern scientific concepts map onto each other perfectly. Grounding ourselves in the source material, we see Prince Arjuna and Krishna on the chariot, facing a massive battle. And honestly, this perfectly represents our own daily struggles with fear and duty. Here's Arjuna, completely paralyzed by the fear of his circumstances and just overwhelmed by what he has to do. It's the ultimate metaphor for human existence. Because think about it, every single day, you are stepping onto your own battlefield, facing your own anxieties. Moving on to Section 2, the Veda Leaves Strategy Guide. Now, the text speaks of this eternal Ashvatha tree, where the leaves themselves are the Vedas. But don't just write this off as some ancient poetry. Think of these leaves as an open-source strategy guide, kind of like a psychological blueprint for your life. By basically downloading the wisdom encoded in these Veda leaves, we gain a massive strategic advantage in how we process fearful information, how we handle our daily stress, and really, how we perceive the entire modern world. So here's the crucial point. Our modern fear and anxiety, constantly worrying about future outcomes, obsessing over whether we'll succeed or fail, is essentially what physicists would call mental entropy or friction. We're creating this massive resistance in our own minds, just leaking precious energy on things that are entirely outside of our control. The strategy guide tells us this is an incredibly inefficient way to run the human system. Section 3, Chapter 10, The Quantum Universe. So, thinking beyond the physical chariot, there is this really profound realization in Chapter 10. It tells us that the divine is both the material and the intelligent cause of the universe. The source text gives us this beautiful analogy to basically destroy our fear of isolation. It says, just as knowing a single lump of clay helps you understand all pottery, understanding this one intelligent cause reveals that the entire world is just a manifestation of a single source. Meaning, you aren't alone. You're fundamentally part of the whole. Before we go any further, let's lock in this definition of quantum entanglement. This is that mind-bending physics phenomenon that Albert Einstein famously called spooky action at a distance. In modern labs, scientists have found that particles can actually be so deeply connected that the state of one instantly impacts another, even if they're literally light years apart. It completely defies classical mechanical physics. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. The Bhuti Yoga in Chapter 10 describes this exact interconnectedness thousands of years before modern math even existed. The text explicitly states that everything is connected to the divine, like a beautiful necklace of pearls strung together on an invisible thread. Once you realize that you, the star above you, and the person standing right next to you are deeply entangled parts of the exact same system, that fear of the unknown entirely collapses. All right, Section 4, Defeating Fear with Thermodynamics. There's this famous quote from the Gita, Chapter 2, Verse 20, which asserts that the Atman, or the soul, is an indestructible spark. It tells us that the core of who you are is entirely fearless because it simply cannot be harmed. It just changes clothes when the physical body wears out. There is no birth, and there is absolutely no death for the soul. There's a direct parallel here. The first law of thermodynamics states that energy cannot be created or destroyed, right? It only transforms from one state to another. And this perfectly mirrors the ancient concept of the indestructible Atman. Your core essence is basically conserved energy and information. When wood burns, the energy isn't gone, it becomes heat and light. In the exact same way, when the body ends, the Atman simply undergoes a phase transition. To quantify this kind of karmic information entropy, the ancient texts mention a staggering number, 8.4 million possible life forms, or yonis. Try to think of this like a massive cosmic supercomputer crunching probability space. When our actions create noise, kind of like a corrupted file or extreme Wi-Fi latency slowing down a stream, the indestructible soul cycles through these millions of configurations, constantly rebooting and processing that data to return to a state of perfect order. So when you're absolutely terrified of an outcome, when you're stressed out of your mind about an email or an upcoming test, you are just revving a mental engine in neutral. You're generating massive amounts of heat, creating all this friction, and exhausting your fuel reserves with absolutely zero productive forward movement. Worry is just a terrible, terrible use of your mechanical energy. Let's bring it home with Section 5, Becoming a Mental Thermos. The core tool for this is karma yoga. It's the path of selfless action. Basically, it means engaging fully in your work, taking your responsibilities incredibly seriously, but doing all of that without being emotionally chained to the success or failure of the outcome. You do the work simply because it is the right thing to do. So, what's the practical application for a modern professional? Step 1, do the work perfectly. Step 2, detach from the result completely. Step 3, hit send on that massive critical email, and instead of anxiously refreshing your inbox waiting for a reaction, just close your laptop. You did the work. You conserved your energy. You defeated the friction. But a quick warning. To maintain this highly efficient energy system, you've got to actively guard against what Chapter 16 calls the 3 gates of mental destruction: lust, anger, and greed. The text warns us that these traits breed confusion, which leads to loss of memory, which ultimately destroys your intelligent focus. They are massive entropy generators that'll just scramble your whole system. Ultimately, by applying karma yoga, you achieve a state of thermodynamic equilibrium. In the text, this equanimity is compared to a steady captain on the ocean. You navigate the massive, turbulent storms of life with the exact same calm focus as you do the perfectly still waters. You become balanced, highly efficient, and completely unstoppable. I'll leave you with this final thought to ponder as you step back onto your own battlefield today. If science and ancient strategy both agree that you are fundamentally made of indestructible, perfectly conserved quantum information, what exactly is it that you're so afraid of? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.